brands are not going to be using this technology, right? They're not going to be using this functionality within Facebook to the degree they can. They're not going to be exploiting it to the degree they can. And I think there's going to be a massive opportunity for brands that play with Facebook and with Facebook's current goals, because Facebook wants this to work.
You're listening to the Brand Growth Project with Rob J. Dream and Ryan McKenzie, and today we're talking about the death of direct-to-consumer e-commerce.
Awesome, man! Thanks for that intro. And yeah, I think this is a really interesting topic. I mean, the headline, right? The death of direct-to-consumer e-commerce is kind of out there, and the sky is falling, but there has been actually some really big changes in this industry over the last few years. Things have been changing very rapidly, right? And we essentially have this situation right now when it comes to e-commerce, that we basically have Amazon, where we have a large percentage of all online purchases that are happening on Amazon, and then we have the direct-to-consumer side of e-commerce, which is, over the last few years, it's, selling on your own website, a lot of that being Shopify, right? So we have all these sites on Shopify selling direct to the consumer, and a lot of them are running traffic through, obviously, the big players, so Facebook and Google. So driving paid traffic to a website, to a Shopify store or other platform, making a purchase there. So we have the direct to consumer side, and then we have the Amazon side. And specifically what we're going to talk about today is around that direct to consumer side and the some of the threats really to that business model and to that structure of a business that's been going. And Ryan and I have talked about this quite a bit, at different times, but haven't actually sat down to record a podcast on this subject until now. And what really, jumped out with this is that, last week there was some stuff that came out from Facebook around Instagram and some new functionality they added, and that kind of spurred us on to talk about this. So Ryan, did you want to jump in and just sort of and go over some of those big new developments that have happened within Instagram and all that sort of jazz, and then we can go deeper into some of the ramifications of that, opportunities, some threats, etc.
Yeah, so the big announcement from Facebook last week was that they started rolling out a test where people can actually make purchases natively inside of Instagram. That means they can go to a brand's Instagram post or an influencer's post. They can literally click on the product in the post, make the purchase directly inside of Instagram without ever having to visit the brand's website or ever actually deal directly with the brand. The information is then passed to the brand to fulfill the sale, but the only way the brand can access the contact information, which is like their emails and whatnot, is if the consumer opts in to receive those marketing messages. The other thing that's really great for the consumer, I guess, in this side of things, is they can handle all of their purchases, cancel their orders, cancel their subscriptions. I'm assuming they're going to be able to do subscriptions, but cancel everything natively inside of Instagram and Facebook, so they don't ever actually have to go and communicate with the brand. So the pros to this are obviously there's less friction in order for somebody to make a purchase. Most people are going to trust the platform they're using, like Instagram or Facebook, and I'm assuming there's probably going to be really good refund policies similar to like PayPal and stuff like that. So there's going to be a lot of consumer protection. So there's a lot of pros for the consumer. There's a lot of pros in terms of probably getting better conversion rates, but there are a lot of cons in my eyes as well. With last year's big cryptocurrency push, I guess that was 2 years ago now, where everybody really wants things to be decentralized, getting away from having a few major players in control of everything. This is kind of a push in the opposite direction. This is re-centralizing everything. And basically putting the control of e-commerce really in Amazon and Facebook's hands. If majority of the purchases that happen on Facebook are favored to ads that are promoting sales directly on their platform, it's going to, I think it's going to do a lot of damage to companies like Shopify, who Facebook's, I mean, I'm just guessing, but Shopify is probably one of Facebook's competitors at this point if they're looking to move to a platform similar to like what WeChat has done in China, where all the purchases are on your e-commerce store natively on the platform. What are your thoughts on that, Rob?
Yeah, I think it's super, super interesting. It's been really interesting to watch this this slowly happen, right? When you're in the platform and you're spending the kind of money per day and managing the type of money per day that we are. I mean, when you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars a day on the platform, you start to see all the little nuances of things that Facebook adds, like tools Facebook adds to the platform, and you start to look at what's the future thought process of why they're adding this. And I think one of the functionalities, one of the tools within Facebook ads, if you run Facebook ads, you've probably seen this, but you may or may not have played around with this much, but there's something that used to be called Canvas and now called Instant Experience. And basically, it's that when you're setting up an ad, it's that little checkbox where you can add an instant experience, right? And that allows you to essentially create a landing page, or really anything you want in that. It's basically it's a instant loading page that can pop up with a whole bunch of different elements. It can have videos in it, it can have carousels, it can have text, it can have buttons, all of these. And at this point, in that instant experience that pops up, that instant landing page that pops up when someone clicks the ad. So they click the ad, instead of going to the website that you're promoting, they go to this instant experience. In this instant loading landing page, they can consume all of this content, and then they can click buttons that take them to the website. So it becomes this little page in between the ad and the product page or the website. What's interesting is that when you start to think about the future of where Facebook wants to go, that process of that instant experience, as soon as they add the ability, which they're now adding with Instagram, but the ability to make purchases on the platform without even going to the site, the goal is obviously for that instant experience that pops up to be essentially the product page where it pops up. Now you can have all your content, your video about the product, and someone can make the purchase right through the platform. So when they first released Canvas, it was very interesting because you could start seeing the direction that Facebook was going, right? You could start seeing that Facebook was wanting to go more that direction of WeChat, and they've been doing tests, over the last few months. They did some tests in Asia with the ability to essentially run like a Facebook Live with shopping functionality, where you could actually make purchases through the Messenger app. So very much like WeChat, right? And so it's very interesting to see this play out. And I think you touched on something, Ryan, there, which is one of the big positives of this, not of course for Facebook. There's a lot of positives for Facebook, and we can talk about why they want to do it. But from a purely the direct-to-consumer side of things, the benefit is that we've talked a lot about trust, right? And we've talked a lot about the lack of trust a lot of users have, especially within the Facebook platform, but a lot of users have with clicking on an ad, going to a website, making a purchase, and having it be some drop ship product from China that doesn't come the way they expected. It takes like a month and a half to get there, etc. There's a lot of missing trust in this market where you have to get over that hump. Chances are, when it comes to Facebook and this type of functionality, in the early days, most likely they're going to be very selective of the brands that can do this, and they're going to start adding more and more and more brands. And if you're thinking about Facebook's point of view, they're probably going to do their best to make it so you have to go through some sort of vetting process to be able to do this. At which point now, if you have that functionality, instantly there's going to be a bigger trust factor. So I think that's the higher conversion that you were talking about, some of those benefits. And I think that that's very, very interesting. I've got a whole bunch of things I want to talk about with, Facebook and Amazon, all that. But I'm gonna pass the mic back to Ryan there, because I will just be on some tangent for the next.
No, it's good. It's good. So, I mean, there's a lot of my biggest thing that I talked about before is the recentralization of the internet or of e-commerce, and the few masterminds that I'm in where there's a lot of really big players doing a lot of revenue with e-commerce, like lots of 8 and 9 figure guys. There's certain markets, especially like supplements, where these guys are already struggling to make direct sales as is in the current ecosystem, because 80% of their sales wind up happening through Amazon, which I think there's the statistic, I think it's something like 30% of people will only buy something off the internet if it comes from Amazon, because it's the only place they trust. So, there's a few different ways. Like I don't do anything. I have like 2 products listed on Amazon for the most part, because I mainly want to build my own brand. And they're like, depending on what your goal is, like if you just want to sell your product in as many channels as possible and be successful with that, you know what, these additional distribution channels are probably great for your business. But if you want to build a brand that has the potential to be purchased, you really need to be able to make sales independently, at least in my opinion, without being reliant on these third-party channels. Because you can have let's use supplements for example. You could have one of your supplements get pulled off Amazon because for whatever reason, maybe it's one of the ingredients is no longer valid, or they have some new policy, or Amazon just launched a new skincare line last week where every single item is under $40. Mm-hmm. So they can cannibalize that market at any given point when they feel like there is enough money for them to absorb it. So those channels are all right if your goal is just to make sales and go that route. But if you want to build a brand that you could potentially sell, exit, or get rolled up by investors, there are investors that do buy Amazon stores. I'm sure there's investors that buy eBay stores. I just think they are less abundant, and the multiplier that you get when you sell of your discretionary earnings is going to be significantly lower when you don't control that audience. When you don't control the audience, you're not building value and assets that you can kind of reuse in the future. Like you can't lean on that lifetime value to be able to ascend your customers to more purchases, because all that information belongs to the centralized silos of Amazon and potentially Facebook if this winds up going the way that I'm kind of expecting it to.
Mm-hmm. I mean, what you're talking about there with Amazon, it's really it's pretty crazy, and potentially if you don't trust and have a huge trust in Amazon as a company long term, then this is also a scary subject. But when it comes to the whole Amazon side, like you were saying, if your business is on Amazon, right, and that's your by far your number one channel for sales, the valuations you get when you sell your company are a lot lower than if you were 100% say direct to consumer, right? Similar, 100% direct to consumer on your own site. Same idea as being like if your recurring revenue model is going to be valued even more than a one-off sale model, right? So you kind of go down this spectrum, and when you go to that Amazon side of things, one of the easiest ways to increase the valuation of a company that is primarily Amazon is to get your direct-to-consumer, your own site sales up past a specific percentage of your sales, right? That little move really increases the valuation of the company. Very similarly to getting your recurring revenue up, right? That's going to increase your valuation of the company. The Amazon thing is super interesting though, because we look at that platform. And we have all of these companies that have come on there to sell all these different products, like all the supplement brands, all the, housewares brands, like every single basic thing that someone could need, right? All these companies have come in to fill that. And I've been saying this for the last couple of years is going, don't sell a commodity product on Amazon, because if we think about it, Amazon is getting all of the data on what sells. It knows where the money is, and Amazon has the ability to just come in and add their own product line, which is Amazon Basics for like everything around the house now, and then the cosmetics brand of theirs that you were just mentioning, right? The skincare brand. And essentially they can come in, put their own brand in. And as we know, Amazon doesn't really need to make money, right? Not only do investors not expect them to make a profit, but also they are, everything is subsidized by Amazon Web Services, right? So everything is is supplemented by a very profitable business that provides the backbone of most of the apps and big sites that we know. And when we look at that, they can come in and not only put in their own brand, but when we start looking at the future of search voice purchasing, right, through Alexa, etc. Who do you think, if you say, Amazon, order batteries, order AA batteries, do you really think that those are not going to be Amazon Basics batteries that arrive, right?
Of course.
So when we have more and more and more purchasing that happens through voice search, we're going to have the ability to sell a commodity product on Amazon is already disappearing very rapidly, but is going to be completely gone in the future. So then we have the other side of the coin, which is then you need to sell your product through direct to consumer. But the first thing is, if you sell a commodity like, say, batteries, you're not going to be able to build a brand selling batteries or spatulas for your kitchen or dish towels and stuff. You're not going to be able to build that brand direct to consumer on your own website, even if Facebook doesn't end up doing what they're doing, right? You're still not going to be able to build that. So if you're in that kind of commodity business and that's your business, you probably want to be getting into something that works more for a direct to consumer play. But go ahead.
One caveat to that is that if you are a commodity, and you already have the business, I wouldn't say that you're dead. I would just say that make sure that your business has a story and a cause and a purpose for people to rally behind that is greater than the sum of your actual commodity itself. You need, if you want to survive in that type of space, you need to have people behind your movement as opposed to your product, because everything is becoming commoditized. That like stuff like you said, like spatulas and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that we actually talked about this at one point before. You do have some brands in this space that are holding their own, right? Not massive companies at this point. I mean, I think we talked about Joseph and Joseph from the UK, right? They've got a really good brand. Most of their stuff is sold through places like Amazon and then through retailers and all of that. And you do get those brands that are going to survive, but you definitely can't sell. A commodity type product based on the fact that it's a commodity product that's available in a color that someone likes on Amazon and easy to shop for, right? Like that play, you think about over the last few years, the number of people who have started Amazon companies, quote unquote, right? Where they just go and source a product, they put a logo on and they sell it on Amazon. And there was a lot of money to be made in just basically putting the basic, home things that were needed by everyone and putting them on Amazon, because they didn't exist in a huge, huge number. So a lot of people built businesses there, but they weren't really building a business, right? They were supplying a basic spatula to Amazon in the interim before Amazon put out its own spatula, right? Is essentially what's happening. But I think exactly what you're saying. And I think that's something we talk about a lot, is that the importance of building a brand and not just a product business. And I think that that's so important within Amazon, but it's also going to be so important within all direct-to-consumer through Facebook ads, etc. If you think about, even if you go into any store, right? You go into the store, like let's say you go into, let's say a Walmart or a Target, etc. Right? They have a few brand names of most commodities, right? There's a few brand names, and then there's the store brand, right? It's the same thing that Amazon's done, only Amazon is massive, right? But the same idea, you go in, there's a few brand names, and then there's the store brand. There's Amazon Basics, right? It's the exact same model, and there's only going to be a few brands that survive that, really, in any sort of commodity, right? Like, would you want to go into any business where you had to compete against, companies like, Kraft Foods, or you had, directly compete with them? No, you'd want to go into a product that was in some way, a more on trend product, so a healthier product, a specific product for a specific niche, etc. Because you're not going to beat them just going straight in against Kraft Heinz, right? No. So it's the same. We've got to start thinking the same way as brand owners online, that you can't just go in and create this commodity, throw it up on Amazon. But we got on Amazon because it's a fun little tangent to go down. But I want to go back. To the whole Facebook ecosystem, if that works, and then go down that route. Don't you think?
Totally. Yeah, we totally got a bit of a tangent here. So
actually, I was going to say one thing I can to bridge our Amazon to Facebook conversation. Really, really interesting thing is, you've seen the stuff, Ryan, with Facebook Portal, right?
I haven't actually.
Cool. So Facebook Portal is essentially a hardware device that Facebook's put out that they're billing as essentially video calling. Okay, so it goes in your house, and it essentially looks somewhat like an iPad, but it sits on a stand. It can either be landscape or portrait, so you can shift it either way. It's a bit bigger than a iPad from what I can tell, but basically they show people doing video calling through, of course, Facebook, right? So it's the idea of keeping in touch with people, and then it runs Facebook and Messenger and stuff on it, all of that. But what's really, really interesting, so they have actually, as part of their, if you will, what's built in from a supported apps sort of thing, it actually works with Alexa. So they've actually partnered with Amazon for the voice functionality, as well as basically, so I'm pretty sure you're going to be able to do things like voice ordering through Amazon through the Facebook portal.
Oh, wow.
So that one thing, when that came out, is instantly showing that Facebook and Amazon are essentially coming together to work together on taking over this, right? Because you look at it and go, Amazon will be the big retailer of products. Facebook ads drives the majority of direct-to-consumer e-commerce sales, right? If they can come together, and essentially Facebook wants to have all the purchases, and this ties right back into what we're talking about, is that, Facebook wants to have the ability that someone sees an ad, they click on the ad, it opens an instant experience of a web page, the person can make the purchase right there through Facebook, right? And now Facebook essentially gets the customer in a way, right? And the e-commerce site that sells the product really just fulfills the product. So you as a direct-to-consumer brand create an ad to sell a product. You run the ad on Facebook's platform. Facebook collects the customer's data. Facebook places the order with you essentially, and you ship the product to the customer. It's essentially the same as selling a product through Amazon, using Amazon ads, and then not using Fulfilled by Amazon. The only thing Facebook has to do is actually add Fulfilled by Facebook or partner with Amazon to essentially do a Fulfilled by Facebook through Amazon's already what they have set up, right? And then we would essentially have everything happens, and this is what you're talking about the centralization, everything happens within these platforms. And one other really, really interesting thing, I think, is what is the biggest reason that Facebook wants to create this portal? And why are they getting into the hardware thing? I think it's one step away if they can get adoption of that, it's one step away from Facebook putting out their own phone.
But they've tried putting out their own phones in the past.
For sure. But if we think about it, if people start using the portal, right? If people actually start adopting and bringing this into the house and using this, it does get them that, because they want a phone. Like, honestly, the biggest thing they would want is a phone, because if we look at, say, Apple, Apple basically is doing everything they can to essentially declare war on Facebook, right? How do we block their pixel? How do we put notifications of screen time you're spending? And where are you spending most of your screen time? On a phone, on Facebook's apps, right? So you look at Apple's doing everything it can to do that. So the number one thing that would be, if Facebook could get a foothold in the phone game, that would be game over.
Yeah, which is pretty tough. But I mean,
Oh, I know.
if anybody was able to do it, like, I could even see Facebook even offering like free service or something like that, just so that people would be able to use Facebook, you know?
Mm-hmm. Think about the data they would have.
Yeah, they're in some heat right now.
Oh, I know, but think about the data they'd have. You combine pixel data, right, with purchasing through their platform, with everyone being, with people being on Facebook's phone, and they get all the data that comes from that as well.
Fuck, it would be nuts.
That's crazy.
Crazy. So let's kind of wrap this up a little bit here. What's kind of your final kind of feeling about what's coming down the pipe, tied with more so like the actual Facebook direct payments? Are you feeling that this is going to be helpful for brands that you're working with, or do you think this is going to be something? I mean, everybody's obviously going to have to live with it either way. But do you think where do you think things fall at the end of the day?
Yeah, I mean, first off, obviously, when it comes to anything that we say on this podcast should not be in any way taken as any sort of investing advice, etc. But I was going to say, on the side of that, of companies and investing in companies, you look at it and go, if Facebook pulls this off, right, then it makes it so that right now Facebook looks like an amazing, ridiculous investment, right? If Facebook doesn't, and if they do pull it off, it makes Shopify look like a really poor investment. Do you know what I mean? Because if they can pull this off, it basically destroys Shopify, right? And it takes everything that's happening on Shopify and if we put it on Facebook, we're now talking Facebook playing the merchant account. So Facebook, like, we're talking Facebook actually, processing those transactions. We're talking about transaction fees going to Facebook. Like, it gets very, very interesting for Facebook's valuation. Because
Totally.
If we look at North America, Facebook can't grow impressions in North America to any massive degree at this point with the apps they have. They'd have to acquire more apps, right? So with this, though, you would suddenly be like, oh, instead of getting X amount for every purchase that's generated through Facebook ads, now they're going, how can we also get transaction fees on every single purchase that happens through these, right? So that would open up a huge amount of stuff. I think that's very, very, very interesting. And yeah, I would say that the scary part for brands is if the adoption of this, really takes off, which we know that in Asia with WeChat, we know that we know that people will do this, right? We know that people will adopt this way of purchasing. So it's happened before. So it's not like we're going, if people are willing to do it this way, we know that people will, right? So it's if Facebook can pull it off. The big danger is the loss of customer data, right? That's the biggest one. And at that point, then you're going from a purchasing standpoint. So let's say someone makes a purchase, right? And they make a purchase and you don't get their data, or there's a cart abandonment essentially. So they have the ability to buy it, they add it to their cart, but they don't complete the purchase on Facebook. The only way you're going to be able to reach these people is through Facebook ads, right? These are going to be audiences you can create, guaranteed, in the future, right? You'll be able to create an audience of all your purchases. They won't give you the data unless the person says it's okay, but you're going to be able to target them. So now the only way you're going to be able to resell to these customers is going to be through Facebook ads, right, through the
Yeah.
platform. So if that happens, a few things happen. One, it becomes that there's even more being tied to Facebook as an advertising platform. It means there's an increase in cost because people, if you can't access your customers through your email list and you have to do it through Facebook ads, that's a lot more spend on the platform, right? So if we're thinking about how CPMs are going to go up, and the other thing that there's a couple pieces. One is I think there's going to be something very interesting. So if this does take off, right, and the adoption rate is really strong, and this actually works for Facebook, they're able to have a whole bunch of these purchases happening online, and they're not passing the email data, right? But if you're selling a physical product and you're still shipping it, the only thing you'll have the customer's name and their address, and you will have the ability to target them through Facebook ads, but not other channels. Because do you think you're going to be able to build other audiences for like Google ads and stuff through Facebook's platform? No. So this actually takes out a huge amount of the advertising happens on other platforms. I think what's really interesting is we may see a resurgence of direct mail as an advertising channel.
I've a lot of people that I know in the e-commerce space are already doubling down on direct response, like physical mail, like lumpy mail.
Yeah. No, it works better than it really ever has, in a way, because there's so little of it now, right? When it comes to that. But the other thing is that you can get that in somebody's hand. And if we start as brands selling products through Facebook and not getting that email data, the only thing we can do is direct mail. So with that, it's going to be direct mail and then through Facebook ads platform. So I think there's definitely some opportunity. I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity over the next, coming 18, 24 months or so, for sure, and probably longer, where brands are not going to be using this technology, right? They're not going to be using this functionality within Facebook to the degree they can. They're not going to be exploiting it to the degree they can. And I think there's going to be a massive opportunity for brands that play with Facebook and with Facebook's current goals, because Facebook wants this to work. Whenever Facebook wants something to work, if you play with Facebook on those things, you're often going to get very rewarded in what you actually see from the ad costs to do it and the profitability there. So I think there's going to be massive opportunity to play with Facebook on this and see really, really, really strong CPMs, strong ROAS numbers. And I think that playing with Facebook on this is a huge opportunity over the next, year or two, or even longer.
I was going to say, like, tied to what you just said, is if you're able to natively sell on Facebook and get significantly cheaper or more inexpensive sales, and you're able to create a proper audience based on people that have purchased from you, this is one of those times where having like a really strong brand, having a movement, having a cause, having a reason for people to want to be connected to you becomes even more important. Because once they've made that initial sale, and if you give them a positive experience, retargeting them and moving them into like retargeting your buyers, moving them into like some form of community or into some sort of email list, like the brands that are just doing drop shipping aren't going to be able to retarget these people and push them into something bigger that they can like that opportunity to build an audience that exists outside of that Facebook ecosystem doesn't exist for those small players. So this actually, for people that are doing things, I don't want to say the right way, but for people that are trying to build value and build a brand, this, there are a few sides of this that could be beneficial for you, because the commodity-based dropshipper type environment will suffer, which will make more room for proper brands to do their thing.
For sure. And I think like if we want to get into something that's, I think, interesting when it comes to, like, we talked a lot about, customer lifetime value and all of that, right? And the innovating and coming out with new products and so on and so forth on the back end for companies, and how you want to building that brand and how we sell to those same customers again and again. And that's really where the majority of the money's made, right? Is on the back end. So when we think about that, I think there's a lot of opportunity with the idea of playing with Facebook during this process. And as soon as this functionality is available, using the best strategies around this and the best strategies and the best tactics to get the best ROAS and so on and so forth, and to play with Facebook on this, because it's going to be this wave where there's going to be lower adoption of brands doing this, but Facebook wants it to happen. So Facebook's going to make it very easy to make it profitable. We've seen this every time Facebook puts out some new functionality. They make it as easy as possible to make that work because they want people to use it. Right? Now, it becomes a little bit of a Trojan horse, right? Because they get everyone to use this functionality because they're getting really good results. And then everyone starts using it. And then, of course, costs go up because competition goes up. And then it doesn't work as well, but Facebook has the foothold and they've trained they've trained the users to actually use this functionality. They've trained brands to use it. And now, of course, it's going to get more expensive. But in that beginning, there's always the wave where there's a ton of profitability within that. And if you think about this, let's say that you're a brand and you're selling one of your products top of funnel. The ability to sell that through Facebook, as long as it's a physical product where you're going to get the physical address of the customer, you ship them the product, and then you think on the back end, you use a combination of Facebook ads, right? Around your customer list, right? Around those purchases that you have to probably run ads within Facebook. So you're running ads combined with direct mail to sell your future products to that buyer. And then what happens is over time, on the back end, it's similar to how you would try and take somebody from an Amazon purchase to then sending something in that has trying to get people to then buy from you directly, not through Amazon.
Yeah.
Same thing's going to happen within that Facebook platform, is incentivizing people or having offers and everything that come to people through direct mail in order to be able to get that data yourself, right? And on that, the big piece there is just going to be thinking very, very carefully if Facebook down the road, which it would only make sense for them to do, if they decide to offer some sort of a fulfilled by Facebook, right? Like that sort of concept. If they go down that route, it's thinking carefully, do you want to not get the customer shipping information? Do you want to give that away as too? Because so many companies were willing to give that away when it came to Amazon. And then it becomes very, very hard to get that information necessarily in order to be able to market to people properly.
Totally, man. This this whole thing is just like, we could probably sit here talking about this for like hours on end. Yeah, so we should, I don't know, we've been going here for about 45 minutes. We should probably wrap her up. But given you anything else you wanted to say before we pack her in?
My big thing, and I'm just gonna, it's something what I said, but I just want to, really say is that as this functionality becomes available, really, really look to learn how to use it, right? And really look to ride that. So basically you want to, as a brand, make the decision, let's say that Facebook's successful with this, right? Facebook's successful, they train users to use it, brands are using it, and a lot of e-commerce happens through Facebook. Let's say that happens. In that world, do we as a brand want to be participating in that world in that way? If that was where the world ends up, right? Like, make that business decision. Are you okay with that being the future of the brand? If that's how users are trained and everything, because if you're not willing to be there, you may have it may be really difficult to hit the goals that you want for the brand if you're not willing to go down that route. So you have to decide whether you're okay with that. And if you are okay with that, and you look at it and go, that's the reality, we're going to find a way to make that work. If you're going to go down that road and you're not completely opposed to it, then really jump on this wave early, learn the strategies, and implement those, and really be one of those brands that takes as much, like, full advantage of this wave that's going to happen where we're going to see really, really strong numbers. Not every brand's going to be in it. It's going to be that next big opportunity within the Facebook ads platform to build really, really fast growing brands with really high profitability, because they're just, if you can be at the front of that, it's always huge. So I would say just think about that as a brand. Is it something we're willing to do? If it is, take advantage of it, and then start to figure out how are we going to get our repeat purchases, learn those pieces, put those frameworks in place. I think it's going to be direct mail and Facebook ads, right, as the primary. But that's the big thing for me, is say, like, don't wait it out and go, oh, let's just wait and see what happens with this. Is once the opportunity is there to do it, if you're okay doing it, ride that wave for sure. How about you,
Totally.
Ryan? What are some of the last pieces that we didn't touch on and that you wanted to get out, since we're not going to do a 2 hour podcast?
Yeah, I mean, I think that ignoring it and trying to pretend like it's going to go away is a bad idea too, as much as I sound like I'm against it. I think if you're somebody who does sell on Amazon already, and maybe other channels like eBay or Walmart or whatever, I think that there's no harm in jumping in here as well. I'm sure that direct response people will find a way to make this work in a way that allows them to build value around their company. I think on like a more positive note, I think this will weed out a lot of the people that are probably harming the Facebook ad ecosystem as is, because they won't be able to continue getting away with the poor customer experience. So I don't know. We'll see how it pans out. I think, I'm sure that as soon as it's available to my brand, it's something we're going to test. But it's the future's happening whether we like it or not. So you either got to embrace it and try to find ways to make it work for you, or you can stop running businesses and do something else with your time. I think that's kind of the biggest lesson here is, things are going to happen and you got to roll with the punches.
I think it's going to be really, really, it's going to be exciting it's going to happen, like you said. The future's happening whether or not we like it, right? So I think it's going to be really exciting to see how this plays out, and just to really keep, close tabs on what's happening, and learn it and use it, because that wave is going to be huge. And I think that, like you were saying with direct response brands are going to find a way to make it work. I think there's going to be massive opportunity in figuring out what are our primary top of funnel products that work really well with Facebook ads to bring people into our brand, right? And get that first purchase, and then do what direct mail, direct response brands of any sort have done forever, essentially, all the way back to mail order days and catalogs, etc., is then producing high margin products, usually higher value products on the back end. So innovate, create more products for those same customers and sell to those same customers over and over and over again. And that's going to be where the money's made. I think it's going to be very tough to run. And just as ad costs get more expensive, it's very tough to run a single product or very small product suite brand in this ecosystem. So I think it's going to be very interesting. I'm excited to see what happens with it, and I say just ride the wave. But we should probably wrap this up, considering we will just end up a 2 hour podcast, which would be fun. I could talk for 2 hours, no
problem. That's good. But cool. So if people are looking to hunt you down and yell at you for your beliefs, or just be friendly and be nice and talk to you as a human being, where would they look for you on social media?
Well, since it's not at the point where it's like you'll find me and contact me through an instant experience within in Facebook yet. So no, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram, Rob J. Green Official, or on my website, robjgreen.com. How about you, Ryan? Where are they going to track you down?
They can track me down to yell at me at twitter.com/Ryan McKenzie, RYEMCKENZ, or Z if you're in Canada, IE, or on Facebook at the Rye McKenzie, spelled the same way, except it has the word "the" in front of it.
Awesome. Very cool. That was a lot of fun. That was a long one.
Yes, that was a bit longer than usual.
Cool. I look forward to the next one. Thanks for listening, and we'll chat with you soon.